What's the worst thing you've ever had to clean up? A caretaker at kindergarten realized that the freezer wasn't on. Someone must have accidentally turned it off somehow. They waited and waited and waited until they could wait no more. A week had passed when they remembered, and NBSP, suffice to say, the food was beyond gone, and the smell was sickening. The kitchen was quarantined, and no children were allowed in until I had finished. I was down by the Gulf Coast gutting houses that hadn't been occupied in the 9 weeks that had passed since Hurricane Katrina. Everything had to go, including the fridge freezer, which had just been sitting there without power in the Mississippi heat. Remember that seafood is a staple down there. We always kept the doors shut and the stench was still horrible, even while wearing face masks smeared with Vicks VapoRub on the inside. One time as we were carrying it, the freezer door fell open. The smell of 9+ weeks old rotting fish hitting my nostrils is something I will never forget. Each of us simultaneously dropped the freezer and starting vomiting. Worked at a Pizza Hut as a teenager. Some guy fished out a poo and put it in the liquid soap dispenser. The worst part was the realization that he couldn't wash his hands after doing this. I caught my roommate's dog eating a dead raccoon. It smelled terrible, but it smelled worse when it came back up later in our living room. I had the same thing happen with a bunny. A raccoon sounds infinitely worse. I'll see your bunny and raise you a Magoti green llama. At first I read this as your roommates were eating a dead raccoon. What's wrong with that, sir or madam? I missed the word dog when I read that the first time. My best friend's dad shot himself in the face. He did it in the bedroom and the closet door was wide open. When the coroner came in, he told us that they would send out a crew first thing in the morning to take away and incinerate anything that was biohazardous, but pulled me aside and said that once they all left, he would pretend not to notice if someone not related to the deceased goes in and salvages what they can for best friend's mom, because nearly all of her clothes would have been taken away. So myself and a family friend went in the dead of night and salvaged what we could, including the original Thomas Kincaid painting that was above their bed, and their wedding album which was on the side table, as well as whatever clothes that we thought we could save. TL Dr. Brains. I cleaned up brains. I'm so sorry. The things you and your friend must have endured are beyond words. You sound like an amazing friend. You're the kind of friend that is true family. A friend's brains after he applied a shotgun to them. I'm very sorry you went through both of those instances. I hope you are doing okay. It was a long time ago, so I'm alright now. Thank you. Still think of him from time to time. Baby puke at Red Robin. The kid was stuffed with the kids menu spaghetti that comes straight out of a bag. As I was cleaning it, the baby just continued to throw up, increasing my disgusting workload. Spaghetti that comes straight out of a bag? Nope. That scarred me along with this disgusting image. Spaghetti is such a simple thing to cook to lol. Just do it, right, or take it off the kids menu lol. I don't see how it's a kid's food anyway. A roommate had a bleeding peptic ulcer and unfortunately did not make it to the toilet in time to throw up. The profuse blood trail from her bedroom to the bathroom was an absolute horror to discover when I got home from taking her to emergency department. I don't know how professional cleaners handle it. Rotten maggot infested black applesauce stuck in a van. I feel like this should be a headline for a newspaper in Russia. Or a really good name for some kind of metal band. My sister is wheelchair bound and has a hard time getting around and doing simple tasks like going to the bathroom. If it's urgent, she sometimes can't make it. One time she got the flu while my parents were out of town. She tried her hardest to get to the bathroom on time, but didn't quite make it and puke all over the toilet, the floor and the wall. Since I was staying with her while my parents were out, she tried to clean it up herself, but fell out of her wheelchair into the puke. I felt so bad for her, and she felt so bad for me. While in the Navy, a jet crashed in the desert and the debris was scattered about 1-2 mile stretch. All of us in the squadron had to walk arm's length apart to pick up any pieces that we came across. We were instructed that if we came upon anything that could be a piece of the pilot, we were to mark it with a small flag. That's so awful. I'm very sorry. I never knew how they would deal with those types of situations. I'm sorry you had to be involved in this instance. This did not happen to me. This is a second-hand story. My mother dated a guy that worked on the tarmac at the airport. One of his job duties was helping get planes ready for their next takeoff. Things like emptying the septic tanks. Poor guy. On at least 2 occasions I know of, there was a valve malfunction or something, resulting in the contents pouring out of the plane all over him. TL. Dr. Guy I knew cleaned up other people's waste off of himself. Twice. I hope they let him call it a day after both instances. My dog had a little ball of fat on her side one morning. It popped. I have 2 great ones for this. First one, it's the final day of the summer vacation. So my mum starts preparing lunch for me and my sister. We were about 12 years old. Not as if I make my lunch myself now. I'm 15 lol. But she could not find my sister's I don't know the word in English box that you use to put your food in. My mom then found her box to put food in her bag to put, you know, your school books in. And the box had been there for more than 2 months. There were still 2 sandwiches in it. The second one, I found a banana in my bag. It was black and stunky Allet. It had been there for a couple of months too. Oh, I think the word you're looking for is lunchbox. I can't imagine the level of mold in that bag though. My brother did a similar thing with a banana. I threw it out the window on the side of the highway and I felt like Mario Kart. My brother left a sandwich in his lunchbox over the weekend once. Ordinarily, a 2-day-old sandwich wouldn't be too bad. But on Monday, Hurricane Irma came and we missed school for another week. When my dad asked him for his lunchbox for the first day we finally went back, he found the now week-and-a-half-old sandwich. That sandwich damaged our house more than the hurricane. This isn't going to sound bad, but I had just gotten home from a 24-hour shift of non-stop fires and medicals, and was absolutely exhausted with a full day ahead of me. I put coffee in my French press, filled it with water, then washed a pan, and when moving the pan to the dryer rack, I absolutely swatted the French press, instantly shattering it. The glass, coffee, water, it was completely dispersed throughout my kitchen. Floors, counters, cabinets, windowsills. I just sank to the floor. And this part I'm not proud of. I called my mom. Yeah, I was 29 at the time. She came right over, happier and cheerier than ever, that her son still needed her sometimes. She cleaned it up, while I took a 30-minute power nap. My mom rules. Pregnant dog. I had ate one of her puppies that didn't make it. Then threw it up. When I was around 5, I hid a sandwich that I didn't eat at school so my parents wouldn't find it. I'm currently 13 and did not appreciate the fun surprise. My grandma had a glass eye and one day it was giving her trouble, so I had to pull her eye out with a little plunger, clean it, then clean the pus out of her eye socket. She put it back in herself. Luckily, I was surprised to see that glass eyes, or hers anyway, were not actually just spheres. It was like the front part of a sphere, but like only 70 degrees of an arc. Anyway, it wasn't pleasant. Months old rotten meat from a refrigerator. The smell was awful. Just curious why you had to clean the refrigerator. A box of McRib meat fell behind a freezer and nobody noticed for quite a few days. The entire grill area smelled so bad that customers were complaining and leaving. A few more days passed and flies started swarming in the building. I eventually got fed up with it, so I abandoned my post in the drive-thru to figure out what died. When I found the box, the cardboard was soggy and green. The meat inside was a red, gray, and green nightmare covered in flies and maggots. Without breathing, I put on 3 pairs of gloves, grabbed the limp box of horribleness, and set it on my manager's desk with a visceral splorching sound. I then clocked out for lunch. Dog ate a whole cow's hoof, caused an intestinal blockage, vomited up his own shit, diarrhea, ate it, and vomited it all up again. I've never smelled anything that awful in my life. GF's cat dies in her attic. Could smell but could not really find until the grease spot appeared on her ceiling. By then it was maggot-riddled fleshy pulp. The suppy mix came out in many pieces, by hand, as that was the only way to access the cavity it had crawled into without cutting open the ceiling or roof. When I was a service plumber, I had a call of a large house with approximately 7 people in it, all back up. Toilets were and flushing, and the lines were full. It was around midnight and there were some younger kids visiting. I decided the best option was to keep the noise down for the kids and snake the line from underneath the house. I slowly opened the clean out plug and caught the sewer water in a bucket. After a couple trips with the bucket I had the plug practically all the way unscrewed, so I thought I was good to go. Well, I was wrong. I took it out the rest of the way and the rest of the house's sewer line emptied out right onto me. I had toilet paper in my beard. I took an hour shower late that night and waited for the water to reheat and took another 20-minute one. My cat threw up in my dad's beard. While he slept, my cat sleeps on his chest and my dad has a very weak stomach, like the throws up at the sight of throw up. It's ridiculous. But yeah, he passed out. Like literally fainted. When he would come to, it'd only be for a bit, so while he was dazed me and my mom had to clean chunky car puke out of his beard. A theater auditorium after a sold out screening of Sing Along Frozen. Blue glitter everywhere. Former dancer and dance teacher. Glitter never leaves. We had this one class that had costumes with blue sequins. Found them for months after. Not just at the studio either. Found them in my house for a few weeks. Not me, but a coworker. She told me that she was going to a funeral because her cousin died. A week later she says he committed suicide in his apartment, shot himself point blank in the head. It was going to cost tens of thousands of dollars for a special cleanup crew to do it. So her and other family members apparently cleaned up all the blood and bits themselves. I don't know much more than that, but I was shocked at how normal she was after having to clean up your own family member's body matter.